right, my friends, we are going to hop into our next segment, and we're going to learn about the three other types of crabs that we didn't learn about the other day. A reminder, these are crabs that can be found around Massachusetts. These are the four that I chose that you would be the most likely to see, even though the last one, which is called the fiddler crab, is a little bit hard to find, and I'll explain to you why. But the first one that we're going to get into is a crab that has sort of three different names. Some people call it a cancer crab, some people call it a Jonah crab. Around here, it seems most people call these rock crabs. And when I was looking at the different pictures, I thought that this was the crab that looked the most familiar to me. So I think when I'm on the beach and I've seen like a crab go by, or I see like a dead crab shell or something like that, this is the crab that I most recognize when I have seen crabs around Massachusetts. So rock crabs live between Nova Scotia in Canada all the way down to Florida on the east side of America on that coast. So we talked a little bit about what coastal means. So it means you're by the water, that part of the country. So the rock crabs can be found from the top all the way to the bottom of the United States, and Massachusetts is included in that area. So we have them around here. Rock crabs, the way as far as how they look, they have very wide, hard shells, and they on their pincers they're black on the top, like little tips that are black. And the claws are very large and they're smooth. Actually, they're not very bumpy on the actual claw part. Rock crabs are harvested around the coast, and that means that people will collect them, hunt them, fish for them, because people like to eat rock crabs. So, like, there's a good chance that if you've had crab, it might have been rock crab. So that's a type of seafood that people would like to eat. So the rock crabs are fished for, hunted for, things like that around the area. Unlike blue crabs, which we already learned about, so this is something that's different about them. Rock crabs are not usually seen hanging around near like bays and rivers as much as the blue crabs are. Rock crabs, they can live in sandy and muddy sort of areas, but they also can be found in very very deep, like hundreds of feet down sections of the ocean. We're going to talk about the fiddler crab. And the fiddler crab is the crab that I was telling you is the one that you're probably least likely to find around here, but you might be able to find it. The fiddler crab is a small crustacean with a very special enlarged claw. So it has like one really, really big claw and one smaller one if you see them. If you see one with a really, really big claw and one little one, that means it's a male. If you see one where both the claws are about the same size, that's a female. But very often, the way that people can recognize and identify a fiddler crab is by it has a huge, huge claw, and I'll show you that in the pictures. The claw can usually grow from like 1.5 to 2 inches long, and that's might not sound very big, but the size of a fiddler crab isn't that big either. So the claw is actually pretty big for its size. They like to eat algae, different sorts of like bacteria. They like to eat like decaying plants that are in marshes, so like kind of like swampy areas near beaches and stuff like that. They feed by sifting through sand, and they'll try to separate. You might see them eating their food like in a puddle, because they like to try to get the sand off of their food before they eat it. So if they find a little piece of a plant that they might want to eat, they'll like run it through some water to get the sand off, and then they'll eat it. Females have a little bit of an advantage when they're eating because they have the two similar size claws, like pincers, so that they can eat things more easily. The males have the very small one and then the huge one, and it's harder to eat with that big claw, so they actually have a harder time eating. Um, Fiddlers are native to the Atlantic Ocean, so that is our ocean on our side, but they've only recently started coming up to Massachusetts and New Hampshire and areas like that around here. This is why it might be a little hard to find one because they're kind of like new neighbors, like they just started coming here. The reason they're traveling up here is because the oceans are getting a little bit warmer lately. And when that happens, different species that like warmer climates and warmer water might travel to that warmer area. So even though we didn't always have fiddler crabs up here, the warmer ocean temperatures are making them want to journey north, and that's why you might be able to see one around here, even though they didn't used to live in this area. Different marine biologists have been talking about this a lot. I kept seeing this when I was trying to learn about fiddler crabs. Marine biologists are saying that if the ocean temperatures continue to get warmer and warmer and warmer, there'll be more fiddler crabs in the area, but there'll also be all different types of sea life in the area. So things that like to eat fiddler crabs might navigate up here. Other sea creatures that like warmer climates might move up here also. So we'll probably see more fiddler crabs the warmer it gets. The final crab that we're going to learn about is called the purple, or sometimes they call it the lady crab or the purple marsh crab. I'm going to call it the purple marsh crab because I kept seeing that come up the most when I was trying to get facts on these. But you might hear someone call it just a purple crab or a purple lady crab or a lady crab. We'll do purple marsh crab. In Massachusetts, purple crab populations have risen to a really high level. So that means there are a lot of purple crabs around. And the reason that I found that this has happened is that there is a certain type of fish, a striped bass, that likes to eat purple crabs. And because there have been so many fishermen going out and catching the bass, there aren't as many predators for the crabs anymore. So if the fish doesn't exist to eat all the crabs, that means there's more crabs. So there's lots and lots of purple marsh crabs to be seen. It just would have to go to a certain area of Massachusetts to find them. Cape Cod is one of those areas, so if you ever take a trip there, I bet you could see a purple crab. It seems like they're all over the place. I've never seen one, but I also haven't traveled to like southern Massachusetts, like around beachy areas like that, very often. Purple crabs like to eat marsh plants, so that's like a sort of like a more swampy kind of area. That's why I think they call them the purple marsh crab. The crabs' high population, so since there are so many purple crabs, there's actually been a lot of plant life and different like types of grass that have been eaten by them because they like to eat this plant life. And there are a lot of areas along Massachusetts beaches that are now missing a lot of the grass and a lot of the plants that used to be there because these crabs are eating all of it. They're overeating. It's even more than they need. They just keep eating and eating and eating. In Cape Cod, there's a kind of grass called cord grass, and people have noticed that they've wiped out almost like entire patches of cord grass in certain areas from just overeating. If you did want to try to identify the purple marsh crab, I have some pictures for you. You can do the coloring sheet of one. But as far as the description goes, they have small square shells. So the shape of their shell is very different than like the rock crab or the blue crab, where they're sort of like rounded and big. They have small square shells, and they only grow to be like about an inch wide. So this is, I think, closest in size to the fiddler, but maybe even smaller than fiddler crabs. So they're not large crabs. These are not crabs that are getting hunted to be eaten like the rock crab and stuff like that. They're a lot smaller. They like to eat grass, and there are many of them now. So I hope that you guys can maybe see a crab by the end of the summer. I know not everyone goes to the beach or a lake and things like that, but maybe you'll be able to identify one. Maybe you could look up some more videos if you're interested in learning more about the different crabs. Those are a reminder. Those are only the crabs that I came across that live around here. There are so many different types of crabs. Like if you look up crabs that are in Alaska, they are huge. They're like giant things. They're like sea spider type crabs, and there are so many other types of crustaceans. So this week we just focused on the four crabs under the crustacean category, but there's barnacles. There are all different types of things in the crustacean category. I hope everyone's staying safe and healthy, and you're all keeping busy. And please send in any suggestions or any questions that you have for me about anything with these videos or the past videos, and I can try to answer them for you.